The best comedy is on Taxi, tonight at 11:30.
Now, live from the studios of 1290 WHIO, your chance to take part in the Miami Valley's only midday radio talk forum. 1290 WHIO and Television 7 proudly present this simulcast segment of the Mike Scinto Show.
All right, good morning to you. And if you see a gentleman standing someplace other than next to me, well, actually, he is next to me if you're watching your television, it's Greg Suker. He is a master mechanic from the Vandalia Auto Clinic, but right now he happens to be in our studios at Television 7, and we are talking about auto care, which is one of the subjects that you've told us that you enjoy talking about the most. Good morning, Greg. How are you? Well, I don't hear Greg. Let's see if we... Okay, hello, Greg. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, Mike? We can hear him, but we can't hear him over here. Let's try this. Greg, let's try it again. Greg, are you there? Okay, I tell you what. Why don't we take a quick break and let you know how you can call in. Our lines are already loaded. We're talking about car care. We'll tell you we're talking about auto mechanics and about how to take care of your car to maintain your vehicle. Give us a call. We're going to show you how you can do it right now and get some free advice on auto care.
You can take part in the Mike Scinto Show by calling 457-1290 or toll-free anywhere in Ohio, 1-800-345-1290.
All right, we're going to try it again. Greg, can you hear us?
I can hear you. How about you?
You know what? It's working just like a charm.
All right, that's good.
You're standing by in our television studios. All of our floor technicians, and I mean everybody's relieved now. You're standing beside a vehicle. What kind? Not that it necessarily matters, but what kind of car is this that we're working on?
This is an '85 Monte Carlo SS.
Okay. I tell you what. Let's talk about a few basic things. Our lines are loaded as we fully expected they would be. They have been all morning long on the radio, and you're going to be with us through the next hour or two. Very quickly, a master mechanic. We've referred to you as a master mechanic. For people who want to know about certification and who are looking for somebody to work on their car, what is a master mechanic?
Well, they have a lot of different certification programs. There's actually one certification program, but it has a lot of different steps to it. For an example, you can be certified in brakes or in front ends or ignition systems. And if you go for a master certification, you're certified in all of them. Now, there are different, I guess you'd say, different branches of the certifications, too. You can be certified as a mechanic and not a body man. You can be certified as a truck mechanic and not an auto mechanic. So there's different steps. And we always advise that if you're going to have your car worked on, that you go to somebody that is certified. Most garages nowadays demand certified mechanics. There are some that don't, but in reality, I think the majority of them you'll find will.
Are there still some things that, I hear so much from people who have worked on cars over the years and have worked on rather simple cars, and I remember the old six-cylinder, the short block 6 and the V8, and before there were 8,000 gizmos under the engine, I wouldn't mind getting under there and doing a few things. It's tougher now. Do you have to, if you're going to be a shade tree mechanic or going to try to do things in your own garage, do you need at least a little expertise in it, or are there still a few things people can do for themselves? There
are still some things, but they're getting fewer and fewer. In reality, there's a lot of damage you can do under the hood of a car nowadays. If you bump some of the wires with the ignition key on, you can actually damage some of the computer terminals, some of the relays or sensors. So you really need to be careful, and nowadays you need to really have some knowledge of it. Even for steering and brakes, now that they're going to anti-skid brakes or anti-lock brakes, they're calling them now. Those are run by computers in a lot of cases too. So those things aren't just a matter of slapping pads on anymore like you did in the past.
How about very quickly, Greg, before we go to the phone lines, just a quick, I think we have a camera focused on the engine of the car. Give us a quick run through of some of the more obvious things that, for instance, where the air filter is, where the battery is, things that most of us take for granted that people, if the engine is Greek to somebody, then they're not going to understand it at all.
Okay, well, the air filter sits underneath this piece of metal here, and it can be taken off very easily by strictly taking off this little wing nut here. We'll have it off here in a second, and then lifting the hood, the top off, and then there's the air filter underneath it. You've got an air conditioner compressor which sits here. The battery is on the opposite side of the car over here, if they can bring the camera over.
There, they've got
the
it.
Battery there. Now, sometimes they put them on the on this side, on the other side too, but in reality, it's usually out towards the front someplace.
Okay, now right behind your arm there, there's a yeah, you've got it. Is that for the windshield washer fluid?
Correct. And you've got to remember, not all cars will sit in the same place. They put these in a lot of different places. A lot of times they'll hook them right next to the reservoir tank for the radiator. That is the plastic tank that sits on this particular car in front of the battery, and that's really an overflow tank.
Okay, where is the brake fluid? So if somebody needs to check or fill their brake fluid, where is that?
Brake fluid is 95% of the time always right here. And that brake fluid is very corrosive too, so if you're going to check your own brake fluid, make sure that you don't spill it on the paint of the car. It'll eat it up. Anything that's plastic, it will eat, so you've got to be a little careful with brake fluid.
All right, let's go to the phone and take some questions from some of the listeners. Greg Sucre is with us, master mechanic from Vandalia Auto Clinic on the Mike Scinto Show on 1290 WHIO Radio and Television 7. We say hello to Sue from Spring Valley. Hi.
Hi.
Yes.
I have a 2-year-old. Can I give you a model?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, it's a Dodge Aries.
Yes.
And occasionally as I'm driving down the street, my check engine light will come on. So I pull it over and turn it off and start it up, and it's fine. And it may not come on again for a week or two.
Sue, you've got a problem most likely in the electronic ignition system. The check engine light is there to warn you that something's starting to go bad. It's probably affecting fuel economy and performance both. That is something that you should have checked out, and it will go on and off. Sometimes you don't even have to shut the engine off. All you have to do is just really drive it, and the light will go back out by itself. There's all sorts of sensors under the hood of a car. There's map sensors and oxygen sensors. We talked about the oxygen sensor earlier with a caller on the radio. All those things can cause that light to come on, to trigger the actual light. So you ought to get that checked out. Some cars will come on at certain mileage, at 30,000 miles. Some cars will trigger, and that's actually to try to help get everything, keep it in working order. So it's something you ought to have checked.
All right, Sue, thank you very much for calling, and good luck to you. We say hello to Michelle from Medway. You're on with Greg Sucre.
Hi, I'm just calling on behalf of Greg, I think, and my husband is a master mechanic. I want the people out there to know that there are good mechanics out there, and they're not trying to take advantage of you, and I think more people need to be nicer to the mechanics, and that's really what I had to say. You need to be nicer to your mechanics.
Well, I'm sure Greg appreciates that, and there are good mechanics out there, and in fact, there are mechanics who you can trust, and that brings us to an interesting point. And Michelle, thanks for calling. Greg, before we take a break, what's the importance of knowing, we have doctors that we go to if we get sick, we have dentists we know and trust. Is it a bad idea to have a mechanic and let them at least get familiar? Maybe you don't have a problem with the car right now, but let them at least get familiar with the car and know you and someone who you trust to take the car back to on a regular basis instead of trying to find one when you have a problem?
Mike, I know it's an awful lot easier when you know the customer and you know the car to work on their car. A lot, I guess, like a doctor. In reality, everybody feels a little different about a car than the next person, and one person will use different terminology. When someone comes in and says, I'd like my car serviced, to one person that means change the oil. To another person that may mean tune the car up, change the oil, check the antifreeze, check the belts, this sort of thing. So if you get to know your customers, it's super. I think that's where we as an independent garage have a little bit of an advantage. Although there's a lot of good mechanics running around, it's not like it used to be where they used to show the pictures of the mechanic with a cigar stub sticking out of his mouth and his feet propped up on a desk and filthy showrooms. It just doesn't happen anymore. We're finding more and more women bring cars in and they expect courtesy and cleanliness, and most of the garages nowadays try to help, try to conform to that.
Okay, going to take a quick break. You are listening to and watching the Mike Scinto Show. We're coming to you live from the studios of 1290 WHIO Radio and the facilities of Television 7. We'll ask you to keep your calls and questions as brief as possible so we can get to as many of you as we can. Our lines are loaded. Greg Suker is with us, master mechanic from Vandalia Auto Clinic, which is right there just about a mile north of the crossroads of 70 and 75 on State Route 40 in Vandalia. He's also on Ask an Expert with Pam McGinnis on WHIO Radio from 1 to 2 every Tuesday to help out with car care questions. We've got the camera focused right now on that air cleaner you showed us a little while ago. And I think most of the folks here on our crew are amateur mechanics themselves. The air cleaner looked large. Was that an exceptionally large air cleaner or not?
Mike, not really. I'd say it may be a hair to the large size, but that's about average.
Okay. What's the blue thing we're looking at right now? There's a blue thing inside the rim.
This right here?
Yeah.
It's one of the sensors for the system. It actually works off of heat that helps to open and shut a valve.
Is there another air cleaner inside the air cleaner? I mean, is there a small air cleaner?
This one has a secondary. Now, that is fairly rare. Very few cars have that secondary air filter in them.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break. We'll go back to the phone. My director just went nuts. Take a quick break. Let's say hello to Betty from Xenia. Hi. I get lost when I'm inside. My mind goes when I get inside the hood of a car. Hi there.
Hi, how are you, Mike?
Fine, thanks. You're going to have to speak way up for us, Betty, or we're not going to be able to hear you.
Okay, I have a car that cuts out on me if I turn it to the right or the left.
You mean it stalls out?
It likes, backs right off, like it's not getting the gas, but the mechanic says it is getting gas.
Okay, her car, when she turns to the right or the left, seems to cut out on her, Greg.
My first thought on it would be possibly a power steering problem. Sometimes if the pumps are actually going bad, they build up too much pressure, and then when you go to turn it, that pump takes horsepower away from the engine. And if your idle is set a little bit on the low side and you've got a weak pump combined, then when you go to turn it, it's going to want to stall on you. Normally, that's a very rare problem. You may try just bumping the idle up a little bit and see if that makes a difference. Now, also check the tension on the power steering belt and also the power steering fluid.
Does that car have power steering that we're looking at right now?
Yes, this does.
Where is the power steering reservoir and where's the power steering belt on that?
This one's going to be a little bit more difficult to see than a lot of cars. The power steering pump actually sits way down inside here. Takes a little bit to get to it. The belts run the pump. They go around the air conditioner pulley on this one and down to the power steering pump itself. This is fairly standard. They do put them in different places on every different make and model. You more or less have to know your own car, Mike.
Okay. Betty, thank you very much for calling. We say hello now to Janelle from North Dayton, a first-time caller. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was calling. This isn't really to do with the engine. I don't know if you might have an answer for me, but when I stop, my brakes squeak something terrible. I've had it to a mechanic, and he said that there's really nothing wrong with them. He sees nothing wrong with them. I was afraid it was going to the drums. Someone else told me that there are brakes that just do that. Is that so?
Disc brakes particularly have a tendency to squeak, but there are things you can do to get rid of it. You can actually have the disc brake pads taken off the car and have a 45-degree angle ground into the trailing and the leading edge of the disc brake pad. That helps tremendously on squeak problems. If you go to a softer grade of disc brake lining, that will help. You can also refinish the disc brake rotor. That will help. There's a coating you can put on the back of the disc brake pads. That will help also. In reality, if you do all those things, you should be able to get rid of the noise. They're not designed to squeak, although they do have some squeak problems. Also, if there's any dust in the rear brake shoes, or if the shoes are not arced properly to the drum, that can also cause a squeak problem. So those are all things that need to be looked at. But to actually say the brake should squeak, no, you should be able to get rid of a squeak if you want to go to the trouble.
Janelle, thanks for calling. Christine from Dayton, you're on with Greg Suker from the Vandalia Auto Clinic.
Hello.
Hi.
I have somewhat of a similar question. It's about the brakes. I've had new brakes put on the front of my car. It's just a 79 Oldsmobile, but I have a pulsating stop now when I go to stop at, at a light. It's a little, choppy.
Okay.
Let me guess at this, okay, Greg? The rotors are out of round.
That's correct. That's the most common problem.
Well, I had them turned.
Please?
I had them turned.
Well, they may have not turned them properly, or sometimes if you turn a rotor and you turn them oversized, it actually makes them thinner than what they should be, and they'll have a tendency to warp again. But that is the most common problem of a brake pulsation, is an out-of-round rotor.
Thanks so much for... That's the only question I'll know. That's it. Out of round. I mean, it's the only one I'll know on cars. We say hello. I'm excited. I am. Let's say hello to Joanne from Dayton. Hi.
Yes, I have a Harley carburetor on a 350 Oldsmobile engine, and we're having a severe problem with the gas boiling in the carburetor and in the chamber. Is there anything we could do about that?
It's probably not a carburetor. In a lot of cases, it's a clogged up intake manifold. And you actually have to pull the intake off and have it boiled out and get all that buildup inside the intake out. That's normally what creates that. Also, if you had like a catalytic converter removed, that can cause excess heat buildup also in that same area and cause that gas to boil.
Let me get, if I could, Greg, thanks for calling, Joanne. Let me get you to show us. I know the air cleaner's still on there, but where is the carburetor? You can see it from looking down in there.
Yeah, you can see it. You can see the top part of it. This happens to be a 4-barrel carburetor. This is actually what you're looking at, this part right here. This is the front 2 barrels, and then these 2 back here are the back ones. Really, on this particular model, you're running most of the time on your front half, and then when you really go to accelerate, if you've ever heard the 4 barrels kick in, you'll know what they sound like, and that's really these throttle plates back there opening, and you're using the whole carburetor then.
Where is the intake manifold?
The intake manifold sits underneath. That's going to be awful hard to get
I'll tell you what, while we're taking... Oh, it will be... Okay, I was going to say while we're taking a break...
We can pull it off.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll take a commercial break. We'll pull it off and show folks what that is, and then we'll come back and answer some more of your questions. Greg Zucker is with us, master mechanic from Vandalia Auto Clinic. They're in the phone book, by the way, if you need their phone number or want to talk to Greg about something later on. Greg Zucker with us on the Mike Scinto Show, coming to you live from the studios of 1290 WHIO Radio and the facilities of Television 7. At noon today on our radio show, we're going to be talking about a neighborhood in Cleveland where they're taking license numbers of folks who are cruising around looking for hookers, and they're sending the picture of the license number to the family. We'll talk about that at noon today, so join us. Greg Zucker is with us right now, master mechanic. And did you get that whole cleaning unit off, the cleaner unit off?
Sure did, Mike.
Okay, we're going to take a look at the carburetor now.
This is really the carburetor here. This is the whole carburetor. And if you can look closely, you can see right here is an electronic solenoid. There's another one over on this side. That is all part of the new computer systems. The intake manifold is really what this unit bolts to, directly underneath it. And that intake bolts to the motor block itself, or actually the heads, but that's really what feeds the fuel and air mixture into the cylinders.
I think what we were saying before about the air cleaner, too, it looked tall, like you couldn't get the cover down on it. Is it taller than most air cleaners?
No. Okay. This is very normal. I'd say the majority of the cars have air cleaners and air filters to this size.
Are there some that you can have taller ones so they get more air in?
Well, nowadays I'm not so sure I'd advise doing that. In the past, they always advised putting larger air filters in, and you could get a little more air mixture. But with the new computers, all that has to be monitored really down to a very minute particles. So to just force more air into it, sometimes you can cause yourself more problems than you actually do good.
Felicia, do you have a question about this jigsaw puzzle we have in here?
Yes, I do.
Oh, good Lord. You don't know anything about that engine, do you?
No, I don't think it could help me.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question. I have an 83 Celebrity, and I did a light tune-up, and I changed the air filter, and everywhere I go, and it stops on me. And here lately, it won't even take a charge. You know, it charge up, and then we might move up the block for maybe, a half a block, it'll cut off on me again.
Okay, you're saying that then when you go to restart it again, it's just dead?
Yes.
Okay, it sounds like you may have an alternator problem, and once you can run off the battery for a certain length of time, but after you wear that battery down and there's not enough voltage in the car to let the system operate, then it'll stall. And sometimes if you jump start it, it'll start back up and run for 30 seconds or a minute or two, and then once it wears that battery back down again, it stalls on you. It sounds like you have an alternator problem.
All right, thanks so much for calling. Gary, can you get a question in about a minute? Gary, are you there? Real quick question. You got about 30 seconds.
I got an 83 Renault Alliance. You drive about 10 miles and the thing shuts totally down. Let it sit for about a minute and it'll fire right back up. You got any ideas?
Well, it sounds like it's either something in the electronic ignition system, or we've seen some problems on that particular model with the map sensor. They've had quite a bit of problems with the map sensors on that, then you may want to check that.
Okay, thanks. Now, Greg, before we go, we have just a minute left on the air now. You're going to be with us in the next hour on the radio, so callers don't go anywhere. Lines are loaded. Check the oil for us. For the women out there, I say women, I'm going to get male now. Women or men who don't know how to check the oil for us real quick.
Well, I need to go to the other side on this car.
Okay.
I hope I can make this.
Okay, he's trying. Here we go.
Here's the dipstick right here on this particular model. Now, again, they'll be in different places. Sometimes they're in front of the engine, sometimes they're on the left side. This one happens to be on the right side. Incidentally, they always call the left side the driver's side as you'd be sitting in the car. The left side's the driver's side, the right side's the passenger side. And you just would pull it out, wipe it off with something, stick it totally back in again, all the way down.
Okay. And that's it.
Make sure, well, then pull it back out and read it.
Check it again.
Always wipe it off first.
Okay, Greg, we're out of time for this segment. Thanks for coming in. Vandalia Auto Clinic in Vandalia, Ohio. They're in the phone book. Tomorrow we're going to show you how to buy a more affordable house. Greg stays with us right now. Have a great day.
This simulcast segment of the Mike Scinto Show was a presentation of 1290 WHIO Radio and Television 7. Join us tomorrow morning for another exciting guest and conversation. The Mike Scinto Show can be heard weekdays from 9 till 1 on AM 1290 WHIO.